Okay, hello. I'm so excited about my guest today. Am I gonna say this right? Genevieve, is that correct? No?
I mean, that sounds really good, but Genevieve.
Oh gosh.
That's more like the
Genevieve.
French pronunciation, Genevieve.
Yes,
Yeah.
Genevieve. I like that. It's very romantic, right? I feel like it goes with the whole sexy vibe that you that you put out there. So I'm going to introduce this beautiful woman to you guys, and we're going to dive into a juicy conversation around wealth embodiment. So, Genevieve is a feminine energy, wealth embodiment, and business coach. She brings a flair of play, ease, and a dash of sexy to getting rich and running soul aligned businesses. Genevieve mentors people all over the world who run multiple six, and seven figure empires. She believes more is always available to you, life gets to be good, and the universe wants you to be rich. Her jam is money, growing your biz, alignment, and letting it be sexy. Get ready to be elevated by getting in her vibe. I already feel elevated in your vibe right now. Maybe I should just ask you if I can call you Genevieve from now on. It feels like a vibe for sure. So welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, about sort of like the journey that you've been on to bring you into this place of, embodiment in such a way.
Ooh, that's a big question.
I know. Get right into it.
Yeah, I could start as far back as like the beginning of, when I was born, but I just think like the general answer is like just I was led here. You know what I mean? Like I was led here, and I built belief systems and integrated belief systems. I feel like the belief systems were kind of like always in my like consciousness, and as I integrated them and started walking in alignment with them, I began experiencing them in my life. But I continued to deepen into this idea of like ease, pleasure, because I really believe and really highly value being wealthy from a space of, full self-honoring and full self like pleasure, enjoyment, spaciousness, ease. And that doesn't mean that, everything's always easy, but it means that we deepen into ease through the work we do and through the deepening of our personal power and things like that.
Yeah. So the ease is almost like the result of the work that you do, would you say?
Kind of. The ease is like, to me, the ease is like this sensation and this feeling and this knowing that like you're walking in alignment with like your true authentic soul aligned desires. And like there's an ease in that, there's like a relief in that, there's like an exhale in that, there's a inhale in that. It's like taking it all in,
life-giving.
Right?
Yeah, like life-giving for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Life-giving, definitely. And like that's the ease. Like the ease is like the feeling where it's like you're not just doing for the sake of doing. Like there's purpose, there's pleasure, there's expansion, and there's ease in knowing that you're walking in alignment with that and feeling that as you do.
Yeah, it's like the signatures of like peace and satisfaction, and feeling fully seen. Like if I'm rhyming off the signatures from like human design, like, alignment with who you really are and knowing that you're walking in alignment. That's such a beautiful thing. So what is wealth embodiment to you?
It's embodying the frequencies of wealth, right? It's I think wealth is an individual experience. It's a frequency and it's a feeling, but it's also a tangible experience that we can create financially, right? So to me, wealth isn't just about like a lot of money in the bank, although that is part of it. It's also like creating that wealth in alignment with like the life you desire to live and the life you desire to lead. So in alignment with the relationships you desire, in alignment with the life you desire to live, in alignment with like your values, your spaciousness, your pleasure, like all of it. So like wealth is that feeling of like having a lot of money and continually building and receiving more and more money over time while you live in alignment with what you want. Like to me, like wealth isn't just like money. You know what I mean? Like it's money. It's money, and it's not just money. It's a lot of money and fuck tons of money and investments and diversity and wealth, and like while you fully honor self.
Yeah, it's like the feeling that you have while having, right? Because it's like you can be wealthy. Well, maybe you don't want to use the word wealthy. You can have a fuck ton of money and feel super scarce. Like you can be in that scarcity energy and be in that place of like contraction and greed and have money. Like it's not just about the money, right?
Totally. Yeah. Well, that's why, wealth embodiment coaching, like embody wealth, not just have a lot of money.
Yeah, it's two different things, right? Like, so in your definition, like according to you, like what would you say, like how would you define prosperity?
I feel like I define it very similarly to how I feel about wealth. Right. It's like, and I think a lot of people project ideas onto money in general and also like words, right? But specifically like prosperity and wealth feel very similar to me, one and the same, but there is an energy of like having a lot of money in alignment with what I want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like what's above and beyond the money.
Yeah. It's money and.
Yeah. Yeah. That feels expansive. And it feels like abundance to me. Like I feel like it's just it's like that, the feeling of more than enough, right?
Yeah, that's kind of the feeling of overflow to me. Because there was a time where it was like I had a lot of money, but then there was like I didn't feel like I had a lot of space in my money, if that makes sense. Where it was like, when I was hanging out at like $40,000 to $50,000 in the bank was kind of like the norm years ago for a hot minute, and I was like, this doesn't feel super spacious. And then I was like, okay, what does feel spacious right now? And it was like minimum 6 figures in the bank. And then since then, multiple 6, up and up and up. But, the feeling of overflow was like the calibrating to the version of reality where it's like, I do all the things I need, all the things I want, and still have so much money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when I kind of calibrated to that energy and that frequency in my experience, I noticed these subtle ways where I wasn't necessarily in lack, but I was in just enough energy. And that kind of translated as this feeling of like, I'll be okay. And I'm like, I'll be okay is not fucking overflow.
Yeah, that's like sufficiency.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, I noticed when I would pay off a credit card, and I was like, no lack about it. And I was like, but I feel like this could feel sexier. I mean, it doesn't feel bad per se, but it doesn't feel like, like, am I allowed to say inappropriate things?
Oh yeah, sure.
It's like, it doesn't make my pussy wet to pay my credit card. And I was like, and I want to feel that. Like, I want to be delighted by everything I have with money. And, I seek out that feeling of like delight and deepen in it in every area continually. It's quite sexy and fun. Anyways, but I was like, this feels kind of like fine, but it's not turning me on. It's not inspiring me to pay my credit card. And I know that feeling is available. And so what's really going on here? It was like, I was kind of coasting on this default setting of I'll be okay. And I'll be okay was better than I won't be okay, which is lack, right?
Yeah.
Because I had to upgrade that system and response as well into what would it feel like to have so much that paying this like didn't feel like I'll be okay. Paying it expanded me, turned me on, lit me up. And just how I felt in relationship to money, my money in the experience of it, paying my credit card, like what would the next level feel like? What would the next level of pleasure feel like around this? And it was like, I have so fucking much. And I was like,
mm-hmm.
So like, there it is.
Yeah, that's good. So 2 questions stem for me out of that. First is how did you tap into that? Like, how do you tap into that feeling? And the second question is, what ways did you start showing up differently when you decided to tap into those new levels, those new frequencies?
So the first thing with like feeling something, and I think people can ask this, and I think with like how questions, sometimes there's like this idea that we don't know the answer, but when we really step into our power, we're like, we know the answer, right? Yeah. When we step out of that idea and that like kind of chatter in our brain that's like, I don't know how. Like I was talking about this in one of my programs recently where I was like, Genevieve, how do I do this? And I was like, that's like asking me, Genevieve, how do I stop drinking this water? I'm like, you just stop. right?
Yeah.
But if you're like overthinking it, you're like, I don't know how. And I'm like, I'm not going to be like, lift one finger, then two fingers, then three fingers, and four fingers, right?
Right.
And then make sure you're over a solid surface so it can land.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, but so there's kind of that vibe. But, you know, I think people think about themselves of like, how do I get into something? But it's like, you don't go and get it, you allow it, you receive it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of thinking about ourselves as like we go into an energy, it's about tuning and receiving the energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have the desire to feel a certain way and play in a different frequency, and you think about yourself more as a radio tower, you're going to attune to it. And it's kind of like this light feeling of like, what would that be like? What would that feel like? And really playing and kind of flirting with those sensations, like in your system and your body, and like how they feel and like what you imagine they would feel like. And then you start becoming more and more familiar with them. And
it's
so,
like play.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And so it's like this, it was like this feeling of like, you know, because at that point in time, I wasn't technically experiencing the level of overflow that I wanted, but I was like, if I was, what do I imagine I would be feeling right now? And it was like, I'm feeling here, it would feel over here. And I was like, there's that gap that I need to close in terms of how I feel. And so I kept calibrating myself to this feeling and calibrating myself to this feeling. And the more and more I did it, the more and more like real it felt, and the more and more familiar it felt, and the more and more like quickly and easily I was able to go there. And then it just became like something I integrated fully. And now it's just like a normal way I feel and respond.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then from there, I just trusted what I was led. Like, I mean, with anything and everything at every level, it's just like, I trusted what I felt. Like, I don't second guess what I feel, and I don't second guess what I want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's just that leaning in, right? Like leaning into, I think it really, there's something to be said about cultivating your imagination though, really. Because if you don't spend time using your imagination to tap into ways of feeling, you might not know how to do that, right? But it's really just a process of playing in that realm of imagination.
Yeah, you know, I think there's like there's a time and a place for logic, but it's like it can't be at the expense of our ability to feel, right? And to like play with different feelings and play with different options and play with different versions of reality. Like that level of self-exploration is how we expand. Like, how would I imagine it would feel? How do I desire to feel? How do I wish I felt? How do I wish this was? Right. And just like, you know, when you ask questions, your brain provides answers, like you answer yourself, and then you open up a doorway into a new sensation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Using your intuition, using your imagination, using your intuition, letting it guide you. And then what do you have to say? This is a topic that's been coming up a lot for me lately, like both on other podcasts and also in my programs with my clients, is trust. Mm-hmm. So is it self-trust, or is there something more to it?
Like how to trust? What is trust?
Yeah, all of it. Like, what does it mean to you? What's your relationship with trust? What are your beliefs about cultivating it?
I feel like trust is like a leaning back, right? Where, you know, and trust is kind of like, trust to me kind of feels similar to like a how question. It's like, how do I trust? You just do. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. And so it's like, when we don't overthink it, it's like that letting go and that leaning back and that faith that the gap is going to be filled, right? Without us having to actively goose it along all the time. Right. Because then we're limited by what we can do, have, and receive based on how much we're doing and how much, you know, effort we're putting in or whatever. But it's like, there's a lot more grace available to us and a lot more space where we can be met more deeply when that trust is that leaning back, where it's like, we create and open that space to be met. Right? To be met deeper by money, by the universe. Like, and that's where that deeper level of ease comes in, right? Where it's like, you're available to be met. But when you're like, when a lot of people are like, I'm trusting, but they're so leaned in, it's like, no, you're not. Right.
Right.
So like the sensation to me is kind of like, if you're ever standing in a body of water or like a swimming pool or something, that lean back and you just float. It's like that sensation emotionally and internally. It's like,
I love that imagery of floating.
Yeah. So it's like, you lean back and you just trust that the water's behind you. And it always is. It's like you're always standing in a pool and that water's always behind you. And as soon as you lean back, you allow it to hold you. Right. But so many people are like, they get so focused on other things and just distracted that they forget that it's there. And then they don't lean back and don't lean back and don't lean back, but it's still right there, right behind you. Right. And so when you have that lean back, it's like this feeling of like, oh, it's not all on me. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm available to be met. And that's the feeling of trust. Like, I'm available to be met by God, the universe, rearranging things, doing the work, people stepping in, things moving in, like I'm receiving, I'm leaning back and I'm creating that space. I'm held, move in.
I love that imagery so much too, because even if you think about like the act of like learning how to float on your back in the water, like you can lean back in the water, but keep your body really rigid and like hold your breath and you'll sink, right? But if you fill your lungs with air, you know, breathe in, breathe life in, and you allow your muscles to relax, that's when you actually can be held, right? It's like almost the exact same idea. It's so beautiful that you use that analogy.
Yeah, I'm glad that you liked it. Yeah. And I feel like it's like this feeling of like, you don't have to do it all. Like you're not like, I say this with love, but it's ignorant as fuck to think that you're doing it all by yourself. You know what I mean? Like there is so much support available to you, like not just like in terms of like humans and coaches and mentors and whatever, but it's like there's so much divine support available to you, right? When we lean back, we allow ourselves to utilize it, because it, like I said, the water's always behind you, but are you leaning back?
Yeah. So that's the theme that kept coming up for me with this idea of self-trust recently, is that it's not really trusting in yourself. It's trusting in something more than you that is flowing through you, right?
Yeah, you know, I think it's kind of like both, right? Where it's like I trust myself, I trust what I've done, I trust I'm led, I trust like my feelings, I trust my desires, I walk in alignment with those things, I move towards them, and I trust myself to be met. I lean back and receive, and I trust the universe, or whatever word you want to give it, to meet me. And or I trust my desires to meet me, right? Like I know people who don't believe in a higher power, who just trust themselves to be met by something, by the result they want, by their desires. Like there's still a level of trust that's being activated.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. So there's like, you know, old paradigm of masculine, money, wealth, ways of doing things. And then there's sort of this new paradigm that I feel like you're embodying of feminine wealth and these new energetic principles, not new, but, you know, I feel more people are moving into. So what do you see the biggest shift that needs to happen from like old thinking around money into this new paradigm of thinking around money?
It's more like, and I think it is happening, and it has already happened for a lot of people, and it's continuing to happen and will continue to happen. It's already happened, it's happening, and it will continue to happen, is what I want to say.
Yeah.
And around that, I feel like it's like this deeper level of like prioritizing self, right? And this level of like earning as an extension and receiving as an extension of like, you know, full self-honoring, walking in alignment with what you want, like your desires and everything like that. And it's more of this feeling of like being an embodiment and then being led and moving from that space very intentionally. Like something I talk about from, like I have a program on this called Potency, where it's like there's an energy that we activate when we start in and move out, right? Where it's like we're fully backing something with such a powerful energetic potency that the energy feels like one swift action creates millions, instead of like a million little movements create millions. You know what I mean? Like one is like swift and powerful, and just like the butterfly effect, where it's like whew, it has a powerful effect, right? Exactly. Whereas like the energy of like doing to get, I must move what is outside of myself towards this other thing that's outside of myself to get this other thing, so that I then feel differently, right? There's more of like this level of emotional connection to self, emotional intelligence of like, how do I feel and how do I want this to feel? How do I desire to feel? How do I desire to move towards this? You know, like I talk a lot about on Instagram, where I'm like, you know, I'm growing a 7-figure business, completely in alignment with, you know, my heart, my soul, my pussy, my body, my values, my relationships. Like there is no sacrifice.
Yeah.
So I think that's that energy of like that embodied pleasure, desire, and really just owning the fucking shit out of it.
Yeah. Sacrifice is not divine at all, right? Like we get to have it all. We get to have it all, and it all gets to be good. Doesn't mean it all gets to be easy, like you said before, but it gets to be good, which I love. And Okay, so some common things around money that I would love to have you touch on. Like, let's talk about desire and spending when maybe it doesn't seem responsible, but you're being led in that direction.
I mean, what does responsible even mean, right? Like, if I was all okay, let's talk about this. If it was about being responsible, I probably wouldn't have made 99% of the investments I've made in my business. Right? I think I've made one maybe logical, responsible investment, but it's like, what's responsible to me is like an energetic responsibility where it's like, I desire to continually expand. I continually back myself up. I continually double down on my desires. Like I go all in on these things again and again and again. And like every single investment, there's some part of me that feels like this is a little illogical. And with that idea, there's can be a belief system of quote unquote irresponsible, but irresponsible to who? Right? Like someone who says, you must save 30% of this and this and this. You're right? It's like, eat a dick. Right. The first investment I ever made in my business was $200 when I had $300 and I had rent due in like a few weeks and, fucking irresponsible. Right. And I was like, it created this level of focus within me and not like this pressure tightness, but like this focus of like, I'm unavailable to drop this. Right. And I think that's the power in leaning into your edges around investments. I don't think with that intentional energy of like, I'm choosing to be expanded by this. I really practice that energy a lot. And now it's just like, okay, it's a Friday. Cool. I'm expanding. But it creates this level of focus where it's like, you put yourself in a position where you don't allow yourself to energetically drop the ball.
You decide.
Exactly. And so people can use that as a reason. I remember when I, like that first investment I ever made in my business, $200 and I had $300 and I was like, had to pay rent in like a week and a half. And it was like way more than the money I even had at the time. And it was like pure faith and decision. Right. And I remember taking a shower after I made the investment and I was like laughing in this shower, like a fucking psychopath. And I was just like laughing. I was like laughing, like this is fucking crazy. And I was like, I'm crazy. And I was like, but I love that every single time I'm willing to go all in on the energy of what if it does work? Yeah. Not on the what if it doesn't. Because I can handle what if it doesn't buy X, what if it doesn't, blah, blah, blah. I will be okay. I can figure anything out. Everything is figure outable, whatever. But what if it does? Right. And that's the energy that I want to alignment with and then invest from. And it's like, that's why I've been able to build what I've built and continue to build what I built. It's this energy of like, and I remember in the shower when I was laughing like a psychopath, I was like, my brain, I was kind of like, part of my brain was like in shock, like, what the fuck did you just do? But like, I felt the awareness of that, but it didn't feel like who I was. Like I was subjectively observing that thought pattern without identifying it as truth and feeling it as the truth of who I was in that moment. I just saw that it was an option and I just witnessed it instead of taking it on. And then my brain was like, well, what if you don't make the money by the time the next payment's due? And I was like, well, I guess we better just make some fucking money then. Like I didn't even entertain that. Like, what if you do? Oh, fuck. Well, then I'll just have to, like I didn't do that. I was like, well, I guess the only option is to make money then. Because when you don't give your brain an out, like, and this is something I've talked about a lot too, where it's like, so many people waste so much energy on going back and forth on decisions. And like that energy, when you just decide, commit, and you don't give yourself an out, and that's not an option, because you trust what you feel, you move swiftly and powerfully. That energy that your brain wants to go, ooh, are we sure? Are we sure? Are we sure? Like gets put into the resources towards creating what you want, instead of being like, will it work? Will it not? Will it work? Will it not? Will it work? Will it not? But it's like when that's no longer an option, it's just like, okay, we're moving towards this. This is the thing. Your brain's like, all right, let's figure some shit out. Let's rock and roll.
Yes. Right? Yes. I love that. That's so true. And I love how you said you focus on the what if it did work? What if it gets to work? Like, because when we were talking about like the how before, like the how questions, I always reframe it whenever the how comes in is like, what if it does work? Like, how is it going to work? Well, what if I did know? You know, what if I could come up with the perfect answer? What if the perfect solution is right there? Like whenever you have that worry, turn it towards, because moving towards is always so much more powerful. And like like you just said, like such a better use of energy, right?
Totally. Yeah. And, you know, for me, like, I just stopped fucking around with how like a long time ago because I just, I just saw it as like, it's an extension of doubt. And I just don't fuck with that. Right. So to me, it's like, instead of like, okay, like let's pretend like someone has a monetary desire, right? Ooh, I want that. I'm walking in alignment with that. It's like, but how? And like, to me, I made this rule where I don't ask how before. I ask, if I'm going to ask how, which is never, I ask how after. How did I do that after I created it? But until then, how? I don't entertain that. Nope, 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 nope. And so now my brain doesn't really do that anymore. It doesn't go how, it just goes, okay. How are we gonna do it? It's like, nope, we're doing it, right? Like that's the only option I give my mind. And so that's how it responds now. But so I don't go how, I go, okay, I'm doing this. What do I want? Right. And so that's why it's like I earn money as an extension of me living my life in alignment with how I desire to live my life with what I want, because I'm not going, what should I do to get the money? How can I get the money? How can I sign the client? How? I'm going, what do I want? What do I feel? Because I believe that like what I want is like how I'm meant to live my life, like grounded and rooted in pleasure and desire, and that my desires keep me in alignment with, you know, the other things that I want. If I'm doing what I want, I'm on the frequency of doing what I want and having what I want. Yeah. But it's like, and I also am just so completely 1,010% energetically 1,010% unfucking available to do anything for money. That's not freedom, right? Mm-hmm. I will do what I want and money will support me and ravish me in my life. And that's right. So it's like what I want will always equal money because what I want is supported by money. And that's kind of how I feel about it. Instead of like how, what do I want?
And you trust your desires. You trust that your desires are of high service, really.
Exactly. Yeah. It's, I believe it's like desires are kind of like a cooperative component on like a collective level where it's like, it serves me, it serves people, it serves the collective energy, it serves everyone on the planet. Like, I'm just like, it's a win-win-win when I walk in alignment with my heart. And so like, you know, I'm rooted in like, you know, pleasure and desire. And like, that makes that voice within me so fucking loud, where it's like, that's the loudest voice within my being. Yeah. That's what I'm from. And that's what I listen to. And that's what it's like, ooh, let's do this. I'm like, yes, let's do it.
Yes, let's do it. I love how you said you don't ask how unless you're looking back, but like, even then you even put like a caveat in there, like, even then, even if I do, because most of the time when we're looking back to figure out how we did it, it's because we want to try to replicate it. Right. But that's also not the vibe. Like,
exactly. Yeah. Because, I have a few things to say on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like it's a way to be like, okay, brain, if you really want to know how, you're allowed to ask how on the other side, but then by the time you're on the other side, you don't want to ask how anymore, right? Or you can be like, oh, just out of curiosity, how did that unfold? It's like, well, technically, this happened, but it really happened because I was bleeding from this energy. That's actually how, right? But what a lot of people do, and I see this because I have clients who earn like $50,000 to $100,000 a month, like some clients more than that. But you know, one of my clients was trying to replicate 6-figure months, and I was like, this is not how we do it, right? Like, it's not about like with the how on the other side of it. It's like, how did I create that? Let me do it again. And it's like, no, you have to keep your hand on the energetic pulse of what is right now. Right. It's like there's a complete different version of reality available to you right now. Like, that was the pocket then, be in the pocket of now, right? When you're keeping your hand on the energetic pulse of what is, you're asking, what do I want now? What do I desire now? What do I feel led to do now? And you're walking forward from that. When you're trying to pull on the past, you stagnate, right? And you're trying to pull from the past, from something that was aligned then that may not be aligned now. Right? It's like really owning that energy of like that presence of being here now and being like, desire now, what am I guided to now? You know, trust now, integrations now, upgrades now, up leveling now. Like, what is that now?
Yeah, it's the most creative moment, right? Because when we look back and we say how, it's also out of a fear, right? It's like a scarcity, it's a fear that it won't be able to happen again. We won't know what to do again. So we better like look to past for the the answers, when really it's about, like you were just saying, like trust in the now, trust in moving forward, trust that like the path doesn't have to look exactly the same as it did last time, and that it still gets to work.
I completely agree. 100%.
That's so beautiful. That's so great. So much to just like listen to over and over again here, like these are the concepts, like it at first listen to concepts like this, it's like it feels oversimplified. When I was first getting into this stuff so many years ago, I would listen to stuff like this and just go like, how can you say it so simply? How can you just put it that simply? It doesn't feel that simple. You know what I mean? It's like, what would you say to the person who feels that way right now?
Yeah, I think it feels complicated when we're listening to the internal narratives that want to complicate things, right? But when it's like, so when we're in our personal power, something I was saying to, like, it was relevant to a conversation in one of my masterminds the other day, but I was like, the voice within, it was on the subject of personal power, is like, am I in my power? I don't know. I've been trying. I'm kind of in my power. And I was like, no, you're in your power or you're not. Right. And when it's that simple, it's like, and you're willing to call yourself out on your shit. It's like, oh, I'm not. Okay. Let's just remove the drama, drop the stories, get in my power. Right. Or it's like, no, I am in my fucking power. Let's rock and roll. Right. But it's like that energy of things feeling complicated. I find we resonate with and we feel more attached to when we're in a place of lower personal power, or we're not being in our power, right? So it's like a lot of people utilize their intelligence for other people instead of turning it inwards, right? And so it's like they have this knowingness, this inner knowingness, and this is from the voice of your inner power, right? Your personal power. That is from you, your individuality, right? Like you, not based on because somebody paid you a lot of money, not based on because this is working perfectly according to plan, right? Like it's because you choose to be in it and hold it, right? And so when we're not in that energy, things tend to feel really complex and complicated. But when we're in that space, and we tend to go there more easily for other people, where it's like a friend comes to you or a client and they're like, okay, like I'm having this, I need support around this, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, I know. And you have the answer, right? Yeah. And it's like, we can turn that inwards to self and, increase our personal power in that way, where it's like, oh, I actually do know the answers. I actually do know what I'm doing. I actually can trust myself. I actually know that I will be okay. I actually do understand this when I'm getting out of that internal, like, it has to be hard or complicating it or whatever. And like, I choose to stand in my power. What do I actually know? Right. Yeah. And applying that and actually like integrating that, then it's a knowingness that we live, breathe, and embody. Right. Yeah. And then what was I going to say? Yeah. Then it's a knowingness that we live, breathe, and embody. But we have it available. And like from that place of power, there's either we do actually know, or if we don't, we can learn. Right? There is no like, I'm just stuck here. That's it. That's the final answer. This is where my story ends. Right. That's always like the one, some of the fears, the greatest fears are that you'll remain the same, right? Like that's one of the, like, what's the worst that could happen? It's not going to work. I'll remain the same. Like, really. But like what you were saying just there is it's really about zooming out a little bit. It's like about taking a step back where things don't look so complicated. And I also hear, and I also think like I'm a voracious reader. I love to read. I love to read older books. And when you read older, like self-help books, like new, I think it's even older than like New Age, but like Science of Getting Rich or like. Yeah, I was just thinking of that book when you were saying that. I was like, they talk weird as fuck in that book. Yeah. Science of Getting Rich or like Think and Grow Rich. Like it's pretty damn simple in those like, books, right? Think it and you will be it or whatever. And you're just like, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, exactly. It's like decide, like just decide in this moment and never like whatever. It's like very simplified. And I think that now in today's world, we just have that tendency to overcomplicate everything because things are so
much more like technical, and everybody is like a specialist, and we break things down and we pick things apart and we get really like specific and nitpicky. And I think that's how we're kind of programmed to be. And it doesn't have to be that way. Like, I think in the past, things were, when times were simpler, people were able to just kind of like make decisions and be like maybe a little bit more like simplified in how they looked at things. And that's why I like to read stuff like that. And like even what you just said, like it's either you're in your power or you're not in your power. It's not this complicated like 17-step process to get into your power. It's a feeling, right?
Right. Like, and when we don't hold space for that, we tend to stop going there so much, right? When you know, kind of like what I was saying earlier, it's like when you don't give yourself an out, you're not going to take it because it's not an option, right? And so it's like, when you stop leaving room for this idea that things have to be complicated. And I think on one level, people get a little addicted to that idea that things are so complex and complicated and difficult and hard or whatever. And I think there's a validity to it from depending on certain experiences, but you know, the kind of feeling in general that things are so complex, it's like when in all actuality, when we don't hold space for things to be so difficult, or for things to be so confusing, or like it need a 17-step process, like you said, it's really just a yes or no answer, or it's really just like, I can figure this out, or I do know already, or I don't, and I can figure it out. Those are really the only two options, right? But when we don't hold space for that idea that it's complicated, we tend to refine our personal power, right? And you know, I think that people get a little attached to it, I think because it's familiar, but I think it's like really letting go of this idea of like, let's just get over the fucking drama already, right? Like, does it have to be so fucking dramatic? Can it like just let it be simple?
Yes. And just tapping into the energetics of it, the feeling of it, and being honest with yourself about it. It's like the little impression that you did, like, am I in my power? I think I'm in my power. I'm trying to be in my power. It's like, do you actually feel like you're in your power? Yes or no? Yes or no question. And then if the answer is no, and the person is like, well, I want to be in my power, like but I just don't, I'm not really sure how. It's like, well, what if you did know? What if you did know? How would you feel? Like, what would you be doing right now if you were in your power? Like,
right.
Let's just get honest with yourself, really.
Right. And I think there is like, this made me think of like, I think in some certain coaching dynamics, people can be attached to like wanting to save people, help people, whatever. And so they kind of feed into that narrative of like, I'm in my power. And you're like, okay, well, here's what you got to do. Complicated process, right? And it's like, no, you're not.
Yeah. And it, from personal experience as well, like it really depends where you're at, right? Like sometimes the oversimplified stuff, like, or the even just the simplified stuff, it's like, I'm just not at the level or capacity to be able to understand what you're even saying right now. I'm not hearing it. I'm not taking it in. I like the idea, but it's not going in. You know what I mean? Like, you might not even be at the level of awareness to know that it's not going in, but it's really about like incremental increasing your levels of awareness, right? Like, and there can be quantum leaps there depending on your belief of, you know, jumping levels of awareness. But my big thing is like removing shame. That's one of my hugest things with the work that I do, is like taking shame out of the equation, taking judgment out of the equation. So I think that is also a huge portion and thing about it, right? It's like, am I in my power? No, I'm not in my power. But then don't shit on yourself for not being in your power. Don't judge yourself for it, right? Like, that's totally wasted energy.
Yeah, because that just compounds it. Like, because I mean, as a part of like continual evolution as a human being, you're going to drop your power. It's just going to happen sometimes. But it's like, we want to check in with, are we dropping our power around the same things? If no, cool, you're growing. If yes, there's a pattern we get to shift here so that you're continuing your evolution, your growth, right? But it's never anything to be bad or mad at yourself for, to feel bad about. It's always just, it is what it is. You know what I mean? But when we make things mean things, like, I'm not in alignment, or gosh, I'm not hearing this, and then we get mad, it's like we're trying to like beat a square into a circle, right? And it's like, it just doesn't fit from that energy. You got to relax and just, you know, I always say with like momentum, and I think this is kind of like where, you know, coaching skills come into play, right? where it's like being able to see kind of where your client is at and like what they're available for, what they're receptive to. And also, I think on a different note, like choosing kind of like what you're available for, and like if you have a preference around like certain types of like certain clientele and where they're at in terms of like their self-awareness. But it's like, you know, utilizing your coaching skills to be like, okay, like let's loosen them up a little bit, right? Where it's, if they're not feeling available, it's like, let's start playing with these ideas instead of being like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, or like so matter of the fact about it. Because with a lot of my clients, it is really like that, where it's just like, no, you're not. Yes, you are. Woo, right? And they're just like, cool, 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 right? But it's like, so they move fast in that way. But yeah, I think with just like playing with the idea and the energy of like, okay, like what is the next step based on where I'm at right now? And it's like, okay, I'm in resistance, I'm not in my power. And instead of trying to force it, it's like, okay, I'm okay with this. I'm not mad at myself. Let's just not compound the energy. That's improvement. That's progress, right? So instead of being like, oh, I'm checking in, I feel like I'm not on track and la la. And then you're like, oh, that doesn't feel good. And then you're like, shit, I'm doing it again. Damn it. Right. And then it's like, you just compounded energy on top of it. Right. And it's like, oh, now I feel really bad. I'm mad at myself when I feel like this isn't working. Compounded it again. Right. But it's, what if we just, wherever we feel resistance, we just pause and we sit with it. It's like, okay, right. And it's like, okay, I'm here. No judgment. That's okay. I'm allowed to be here. I'm a continual work in progress. I'm a human who's continually evolving. I love and accept myself for being here where I'm at. I know that I'm continually growing and progressing. I acknowledge my progress. I'm really proud of myself and I celebrate myself. I do desire to shift this, but it's okay that I haven't yet. Right. And so when I'm okay here and I acknowledge the desire for progress, it's like we can lean into that invitation of expansion, right? Instead of it being like, I need to beat myself into it, because that never works.
Yeah. That's like expressing the gratitude towards yourself for how far you've come, giving yourself forgiveness for wherever you held yourself back. And also, to me, the thing that comes up again is like the lean back, the trust. Like when you're feeling all of those like nitty gritty feelings or like small feelings or whatever, that is also usually an indication that you need to like lean back a little bit and then go into pleasure. I find that so powerful when you're feeling that like pushy energy to just like take a step back, take a deep breath, lean back, find something to light yourself up, right? Like go into your desires.
Yeah, get out of your head, get in your body, right? Like I said this on Instagram yesterday, I think, but it's like people feel like they need to be in this constantly like perfectly like rainbows shooting out of your eyeballs and glitter coming out of your asshole, right? Where it's like, I'm so aligned and so on it, right? But it's like, if you have the ability, because you create this relationship with yourself where it's like you're willing to receive from self through it all, you can receive through it all, right? Where it's like, because the reality of being a human is like you're always going to be expanding, and with expansion means you're not there yet to something, in relationship to something, always, right? And so it's like when things come up, when things need to be shifted, when you can give to yourself, when you can give yourself whatever you need, when you can love yourself in that space in between, that's you being receptive, right? And to me, that feels like it creates a distinction between being like on, like, oh, I need to be on for my launch, and like, right? Versus just being open, right? And being open is being receptive, available to receive. And you can have that under any and all circumstance and condition based on, and it's mirrored in the relationship you have with yourself. The time you create for yourself, the space you create for yourself, how you love yourself, how you connect with yourself, what you do for yourself, what you allow yourself to walk in alignment with in terms of your desires. Like when you're willing to always give to self, you can always receive, because you start to get really familiar with what it's like to be receptive under any and all conditions. And so then you allow yourself to be a cyclical human being who has a human experience of different emotions, of resistance and alignment, and the variety of the human experience, and still be available.
Yeah, that's so important, to be able to have the full range of human emotion and experience, not shut it down, not shy away from it, because I'm of the belief that like when you numb one, portion of experience, you numb the opposite end as well. So like when we try to numb, pain or disappointment or whatever, we're also numbing our ability to celebrate, numbing our ability to feel joy and ecstasy of bliss and all of those other incredible things that we came to feel.
Totally. I agree with that 100%. Because I feel like when we're willing to feel and be with any experience of pain that arises throughout our life, throughout our experience, throughout our journey, and be willing to be with it, like the level of depth we're willing to create also creates a space for that deep level of joy to be there as well. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's like, as deep as you're willing to go is how deep you can feel, and as deep as you're receptive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But when you numb it out, you're just going, that's there, but I don't want to feel it. And then you're like,
yeah.
Turn it off, turn it off, turn it off.
Yeah. You're just like narrowing your ability to experience things, right? You're shutting down.
Totally. It's like there's a car in a parking space and you're like, oh, why won't this new car fit? And you're trying to pull that new car that's like, ooh, the new desire into the parking spot. And you're like, oh, it just bumped up against something. You're like, oh, that didn't feel good. I know, let's go have a cocktail or 5, or let's go watch some TV, or let's ignore this, right? Or whatever, or just like kind of shut it off emotionally, right? Like, because you have that ability, right? Where you just kind of like numb it out to whatever degree, however you do at the time. And then it's like, okay, well, that space is still like, you can't, this is your edge then. This is like your emotional edge, and you can't, what's in that space, once you heal that, is deeper joy, deeper pleasure, deeper receiving. And so it's like when you're willing to be like, okay, I can feel this, I can be with this, because we know that emotions, even like discomfort, is always temporary, right? Emotional discomfort is temporary, even if it lasts like a few weeks on and off, or if it lasts like an hour or an evening or a few days, still temporary, right? And so it's this knowingness of like, it's amazing and quite impressive actually what people will do to avoid pain, right?
Oh, yeah.
What people will do to avoid emotional discomfort, right? And all these little ways people go about avoiding it, and it keeps them so small and stagnant in their lives and in relationship to their desires, because it's like, well, that doesn't feel good. And it's like, but when you know that you can handle it, you transmute it quickly, and you deepen in pleasure, and you deepen in receptivity to money and, growth and everything that you want, right? And so it's like, when you get really good with the full experience of humanness and the full experience of emotion around that, and know that you can handle anything, that you will be okay, that you can navigate anything. I talk about, like, metaphorically speaking, when you know that you can handle any wave, you allow yourself to get in the water of abundance, right?
I love that.
When you're standing on the beach and you're like, those waves look kind of intimidating, or I went in and God one just really punched me in the face and that was scary, and you ran out, right?
Yeah.
And I love that analogy because I grew up in Iowa and I didn't go to the ocean until I was like 14 or something. And I was like, this thing is fucking terrifying.
Oh yeah.
But it's like, when you get past those first initial waves, it's so calm, and it's like, it's healing, it's beautiful, it's relaxing, right? Like, you just have to like know that you can handle it. And when you do, like, metaphorically speaking, this is where it kind of stops being as applicable to the ocean, because when you get out there, the waves are pretty big, but
yeah.
Metaphorically speaking, you allow yourself to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, because you know that you're not afraid of going deeper, because what if there's a wave out there, or I bumped into one wave and that was scary and I'm going to go back, right? Or I'm going to go back to my comfort zone. I'm going to go back to creating the amount of money that feels comfortable, or I'm going to go back to this because that felt safer on some level.
Yeah, that's so true. It's so beautiful. It's like all the water analogies,
Oh yeah. Good point.
Yeah. And it's so applicable to money, right? Like currency, right?
Yeah. I love it.
Currency. Yeah. Currency. So I think this has been such an expansive conversation and hit on so many different things. And I'm sure that the people listening here are curious to know where they can deepen their, journey with you, and how they can get to know more of what you do, and where they can find you and all those good things. So can you let us know what do you have going on right now? Where can we come and find you? And how can we get to know you better?
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know when you're releasing this, but you can follow me on Instagram. That's where I hang out most of the time. I'm on Facebook sometimes as well. But Genevieve Rackham on Instagram. I'm sure my name is somewhere available around this.
In the show notes, yeah.
Show notes. And right now I'm really loving the deepening around my high level containers. So I have a 6-week mastermind called Energetic Opulence. I have my long-term ongoing mastermind, which is a rolling container, which is always open if we have spaces available, called the Sexy Wealthy Bitch Mastermind. I do one-on-one private mentorship. I do courses. Like, I usually do the majority of my courses live. I do workshops. We do potency. We do magnetic. We do all the things. It's quite fun.
Sounds very juicy and delicious. I'm sure that people are going to, you know, completely expand their wealth world by going to find you. So thank you for sharing all that. Thank you for coming and having this beautiful conversation with me. And for my final question that I ask all of my guests, what are you currently manifesting?
What am I currently manifesting? Several things. Do I have to pick one?
Give us everything.
So money-wise, multiple 6-figure months, so $200,000 plus cash per month. My next home in the city where I want to buy it.
Where's that?
The city where I want to buy it is unclear.
Okay. Oh, you're manifesting the city too. Okay,
yeah.
Got it.
And yeah, but I'm going, I feel like it's somewhere in Florida, but so I'm going to scope out some places this month, actually.
Nice.
To feel it out. So another house, multiple 6-figure months, and I don't know. Life is good.
That is amazing. Sounds great.
Yeah. Getting married in October, and
congrats.
Healthy, happy,
wealthy. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Genevieve. Look, I said your name right. And I can't wait to get this episode out there, and to also deepening my friendship with you. So thank you one last time, and we'll say bye for now.